planning a pregnancy with diabetes is a little different than usual. Diabetes brings some unique factors to consider. And that's why in this episode of Nourish, I'm joined by a special guest, Credentialled Diabetes Educator and all-round diabetes guru, Shae. If you've got diabetes, you're not going to want to miss this. So stay tuned. Welcome to Nourish. So on today's episode, we have the fabulous Shae with us. Welcome, Cindy.
Thank you.
So Cindy, can you start by just telling us a little bit about yourself?
So I've been working as a dietitian for more than 10 years and I'm also a Credentialled Diabetes Educator. So currently I do work with patients who live with diabetes, so all types, so type 1, type 2s, gestational diabetes. Also work with fertility and pregnancy couples as well, and also with chronic conditions such as weight management. So the reason why I wanted to get into dietetics and also specialise in sort of diabetes management is because I live with type 1 diabetes myself, and that's been over 20 years.
Wow.
Already. And I know like having type 1 diabetes is just a 24-7 sort of condition that you live with. And that's why I really want to help women and also couples as well in this really important space around that fertility and pregnancy area, because there's so much we can do as a dietitian, as a diabetes educator to try and think about for that couple, but also for their future generations as well.
Wow, what an expert you are in this area. Thank you for coming and sharing your knowledge. We really appreciate it. So Cindy, can you start by telling us a little bit, giving us a bit of advice about preconception care for people with diabetes? What should they be aware of?
So in terms of preconception care, there's the reason why we want women living with diabetes to think about planning and preparing for pregnancy is that there are some pregnancy-related complications that can evolve in terms of having high blood sugar levels during pregnancy. Right. This does include such as, like increased risk of miscarriage, birth defects, the baby having a low blood sugar when it's been born, or it's been, the baby becoming too big as well. So these are some of those risk factors that we really want to try to minimize as much as possible. So when we talk about preconception care, ideally you want to be speaking with your diabetes team at least 3 to 6 months, or even longer than that, if you're thinking about getting pregnant as well. And that's where, by optimizing your blood glucose levels way before even trying to get pregnant, you've got to be able to feel a lot more better coming into the pregnancy, because once you do get pregnant, there's so many factors such as your pregnancy hormones, and that really can increase up your blood sugar levels. And by having that knowledge and also feeling a bit more power to how to manage it beforehand, you're going to feel a lot more better when you are pregnant. Yeah,
okay, amazing. And so how important is it for people with diabetes to be monitoring their blood glucose levels? And if so, what type of range is optimal when it comes to optimal fertility?
It is very important to be monitoring your blood sugar levels. Like, it's one of the key things that we get people, like women, also couples living with diabetes, to start doing as well, because by optimizing your blood glucose levels to the targets as much as possible, you really can reduce all those risk factors that we did talk about in terms of pregnancy-related complications. And so that's the one thing that you can be doing at this point in time.
Right.
Okay. And the targets that we are aiming for then, so each country will have different guidelines in terms of what the targets are that we're trying to aim for. But generally we're looking at the HbA1c, we're aiming for less than 6.5%. If you're on continuous glucose monitoring, you are aiming for around about 3.5 to 7.8 millimoles per mole, with a more than 70% timing range. If you're doing a blood sugar level check each time as well, your fasting levels are looking at less than 6, 1 hour less than 8.5, and 2 hours less than 7.8. So they're very, very tight targets that we're looking at compared to someone who's not pregnant or planning for pregnancy.
Yep.
But all it is, we don't want you to have more low blood sugar level or hypoglycemia episodes as well. And so this targets, just a guideline, is really you need to be speaking with your diabetes team and these targets will be individualized according to you.
Okay, amazing. And then in terms of nutrition, could you share some of your top 3 dietary strategies for people who are trying to conceive with diabetes?
So my top 3 nutritional strategies is, firstly, you want to be choosing mostly lower glycemic index or low GI types of foods. So this includes a good variety as well. So for example, like could be rolled oats, whole grain bread, brown rice, quinoa, lentils and legumes. This is really important to have that good variety and diversity. Along with this, each sort of meal that you're having or even snack, you want to be including a source of protein. So this is like a lean meat, chicken, fish, eggs and tofu. And along with that, you want to be filling up with a lot of non-starch vegetables such as, it could be broccoli, carrots, tomatoes and things like that as well, and adding a small amount of healthy fats with it. And lastly, a bit more specific to diabetes, it's a really good time to start reviewing on your carbohydrate counting skills as well. So it may be doing a bit more sort of carbohydrate counting in terms of weighing and measuring out foods as well. So you know exactly how much carbs you're eating, because that's still the key macronutrient that will impact on your blood glucose levels.
Amazing, thank you. And then in terms of pregnancy, what are some of the key risks of diabetes, during pregnancy if you have pre-existing diabetes?
So some of the key risks are you do have an increased risk of potentially miscarriage, birth defects if you do have higher blood glucose levels, and then during pregnancy itself you do also have the risk of having high blood pressure, having a cesarean before labour. You might have the baby being a lot more larger as well, so more than 90th percentile, and also the risk of the baby actually going into intensive care unit, because there's also that risk of the baby having a low blood sugar when it's being born. So there's heaps of things that we can be doing, preventing and managing beforehand, and that's where that preconception planning really is so important.
Yeah, it makes sense that that because you have those risks doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to experience it if you put in that preconception planning in place. So as a dietitian who specialises with clients who have got diabetes, what does a dietitian do to help clients with diabetes when they're planning a pregnancy or when they're pregnant?
So specifically, as I work with people with diabetes, it is trying to get them to understand a little bit more about, the diabetes management in pregnancy, but it's also understanding the food choices that they have according to the blood glucose levels as well, and looking for those patterns that we're talking about. So in terms of, what type of foods will elevate their blood glucose levels, how can we modify and make this a little bit more better for them to manage. But on top of this is also looking at how we can optimize the egg and sperm health as well. So in terms of that other dietetic and nutrition side as well, and making sure that they're eating the right foods as well, and also potentially looking at supplementation.
Fantastic. Well, you've given us such a great insight. Thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge. And we'll definitely put all of your contact details in the description box below. So if you have diabetes and you're looking for a dietitian who specialises in this area, Cindy is your go-to person. So thanks for joining us, Cindy.
Yeah, thank you.
If you're planning to conceive, a great place to start is to download our free fertility meal plan from www.melaniemcgrice.com/fertility. Then, as mentioned, we urge you to reach out to a dietitian for personally tailored advice on optimising your fertility. Finally, if you found this helpful, please like and subscribe. I look forward to seeing you in my next video. A little bit higher. I think I'm